Welcome into the Small Business Banter podcast. Really pleased to welcome in Garrick Tate. How you going, Garrick?
I'm doing well, Michael.
Garrick is an AI futurist, an investor, an AI strategy consultant. He's got a decade of entrepreneurial experience, so he's founded and led successful companies in software development, outsourcing, and publishing. And his expertise lies at the intersection of AI, IQ, and EQ. What I particularly like about some of the information Garrick published about himself was that he's, and we're going to talk a lot about outsourcing, business process outsourcing with an exit planning bent, but he likes getting his clients' businesses to higher levels of profits with a mind on ultimately that owner of that business getting out at a higher value. In today's episode, we are gonna talk very specifically about exit planning and how you use outsourcing to ramp that up. We're gonna cover off why sometimes and more often where exit planning leads you to reconsider whether you should actually sell because you've done such a good job of your outsourcing and your exit planning. How AI is going to change, detract from small business across the globe, and then your experiences as a founder and an exiter. So, can you give us a little bit about the work you do and who Garrick Tate is to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me, Michael. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. My background, I feel like just very, very fortunate. Right place, right time. My family is entrepreneurial. We got our start in internet marketing and was able to also graduate college early because in the Northwest United States, you can skip the last few years of high school to take a few years of college. So right as I graduated at 18, we were just starting a new business in the family. My brother and my father jumped into that, and it was all in internet marketing. And so I was very fortunate to get a really big head start building businesses, building companies, and now we've built 3 companies at this point, and been working with AI for about 6 years now. Of that decade, very first software project we built it ourselves, an AI for optimizing advertising, and have never really looked back. AI is probably my biggest passion in the world. So
just seems to have captured everybody's imagination and created all these opportunities and all these fears. So looking forward to digging down that. But you run 3 businesses. What are those 3 businesses, Garrick?
Yeah, so we have a software company, a VA company, and a publishing company. So the publishing does books and magazines. We don't do vanity publishing. So if the book doesn't make money, we don't make money. So that's our focus. We're not in the self-publishing space, even though we take a lot of the learnings from it. And then VA company specializes in helping entrepreneurs take their business to the next level, kind of level up their older systems and processes and get a little more mature system process installed while getting a VA. And then software, we specialize in AI and automation.
Okay. And the software company is called Valhalla?
Yep, Valhalla.
Yep, Valhalla. You're wearing one of their T-shirts, I think,
Yep.
yeah?
Got the logo.
Yeah.
The name came about from Norse mythology, their version of heaven. It's the only version of heaven where you are preparing for something in the future. It's not the end point. It's a point where you're practicing, you're becoming a better warrior, you're training with other people, you drink, you party, you have a good time, but you're there with a purpose, and that purpose is to help stop the end of the world. And so thought it was a good name for a company that's really about building people up, expanding potential, and growing people to start new businesses, which is a lot of what we're focusing on right now, helping other businesses and potentially starting new ventures.
Yeah, and then if you want to call it traditional outsourcing, what we didn't say that's called 2XU, I think.
Yep, 2XU. Didn't say the name. Yeah.
And you've been based in Cebu in the Philippines,
Yep.
for 10 years now. So you've again been on the ground in a well-known outsourcing hub for a long time.
Yes, sir. Cebu is probably the best place, I think, in Southeast Asia to get really great English skilled people, and the people here just has such a beautiful culture. There's a lot you learn from obviously being on the ground here, and a lot of things to kind of adjust mindset for engaging with the culture here. But if you can crack it, then I think Cebu is just an amazing place to start a company.
In that mix of things where you saw yourself at, EQ was one of the three. And I've listened to some other of your podcasts, and you do talk a lot about that EQ stuff, broadly speaking, both with your clients and also with the staff that you work with over there. And I think that's perhaps a missing element of outsourcing generally, where it
Yeah.
hasn't perhaps worked or hasn't gone as efficiently as it can, because it's kind of been viewed perhaps as a little bit of a just get some stuff done off and it'll come back, and you're very much about building people, which has to be that way, whether it's staff in your office or staff wherever. So
And the way I look at that actually is that right now we're building these AIs, and we're building intelligence into them. They still truly cannot hold a candle to human intelligence, and I don't think they're going to be there at least this decade. So let's talk about the here and now. But that every human is just a galaxy of complexity inside their mind. People really are your best asset. You yourself are your best asset, and people around you are, I would say, second best maybe. But we're underutilizing them, just like we were underutilizing them 100 years ago. Before, literally we measure cars on horsepower. How many horses could drag this? And humans were the same way. We were putting our bodies and our physical prowess into certain positions that, sure, we can do that because we're the most versatile, most adaptable, best tool for most jobs, but we're not optimized for that. And it's the same thing, I think, with intelligence. Is right now, just like electricity and manufacturing has taken over a lot of the things that humans could do, but we weren't the best at it before. But we could do anything because we're very adaptable. Now AI is being added in a lot of places that are taking over the data entry work, the rote work, the repeatable, predictable work, so that we can free up ourselves to fully utilize what makes us human, fully utilize that galaxy of complexity that we really have. And I'm sure we'll dive more into that later, but people really are the best asset.
Yeah, there's layers of that. So as a business owner, and I do want to get straight into the exit planning piece because,
Yes.
But you layer this AI. As a business owner, you can outsource tasks, and the staff or the team you have that are on the ground doing the stuff you've outsourced can also use AI and outsource further to, and focus on their best use of their time. So it's all about finding that level where you're spending whoever's time on the best possible use of that time.
Yeah.
So we connected a month ago. What really struck me, we had a 1 hour conversation, but you could see the pathway between a business owner now better utilizing other resources that they don't currently utilize to improve their business. With that, you took it a little further and said maybe that could become. You saw the pathway to integrating that perhaps as even part of as an exit planning. Part of exit planning, or
so
sale.
We call it like the last mile upgrade, taking the newest technologies, with AI, with automation, and then doing things that we couldn't do even a few years ago, adding them into your business to remove constraints in order to dramatically increase your business's potential, and hopefully do it in a way that fits into your exit planning goals. So it's like a last mile upgrade. It's an upgrade you can make in order to increase the valuation right before that big acquisition.
Yeah, and look, it still remains the holy grail for a lot of owners to build a successful business and make money as you go, but also to leave it in a place where ideally it's got value. You can sell it to do whatever you might want to do, or as I like to contemplate for more owners thinking about keeping it, because the within exit planning, within getting processes and systems built in, it just makes you as the owner less needed in the business day to day. So
Yeah.
anyway, so
Well, I
when
mean,
you
literally, business, literally your valuation is defined. Bottom line, like the master statement is, it's a when your valuation is defined as your discount on future earnings while factoring in opportunity cost. So that's about increasing EBITDA. It's about reducing risk so that it's consistent income, but it's also reducing the owner dependency, therefore decreasing the opportunity cost because you're freed up to do those other things. And if you factor in the fact that you're discounting that future earnings, well, if why would you sell it? So now
yeah
there are good answers to that. There are lots of good answers to that question, but it's a hard question to ask because you are discounting future earnings, factoring in opportunity cost. And if you're going to be making enough money and your opportunity cost is very low because you're freed up, you're not selling a job, you're selling an asset. Well, there's a strong argument that it's worth keeping. And so this process, I think of running it like you're going to sell it, even if you don't plan to sell it, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's where we really, bonded over that, that very opportunity to make it so that it is sellable, but you have more of a choice. And we could talk a lot about why you're in business, and lots of owners have different reasons, and some the business it's got a financial. You've got a requirement to produce a certain financial return, but it also can provide a lot of other non-financial benefits, purpose, and the opportunity to express and create and change the world, and all those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, but let's from your perspective, could you just talk a little bit generally about, and if you don't call it outsourcing, I what I mean by that is when an owner or a business decides their growth is capped or they're inefficient, and so they need some more resources, and instead of hiring a full-time staff member or three, or they look at outsourcing to So is that what we're talking about here in terms of broadly outsourcing?
In some broad strokes, our companies specialize in providing a full-time resource. We think that especially for knowledge workers, especially premium high-level knowledge workers, you want them to be obsessing about your business so they get those ideas in the shower, right? Like if you're really on your one thing, then that's not just saturating your conscious mind, it's also saturating your unconscious mind. And so those ideas in the shower about how they can improve the business, how they can take the initiative, that's when you get the magic from that. So we really specialize ourselves in that full-time space, but otherwise, I think broadly, that's exactly what we do.
What are some of the reasons an owner should initially think about outsourcing, or what are the scenarios they find themselves in when they should think about tapping into something like this?
So I think there's two different answers, at least in the domains that I specialize in. One is in software development. That's one answer, and one is in the VA side. Are we talking more on the VA side?
Oh, look, I think that, yes, let's do that, and we'll come back to to technology.
Got it.
Yeah.
So on the VA side, I would say at least in the domain that I'm in, there's a lot of different answers to this. One is just it could just be costing that you want to reduce margins. Generally speaking, we don't play in that space. Providing hundreds of low talent workers. We generally specialize in a different type of outsourcing, which is that a lot of business owners, especially at one point in their career, have, even if they've not been a solopreneur, they ran the company like a solopreneur, and they're doing a lot of things themselves, and they need help not just with a second brain to like attack the problems, though maybe they just need a second brain. That's why it's called 2XU, second one of them to attack the problems. But they might also need help with building out what we call BOSS, business operating systems. So they might need help creating those things. If you read from the E-Myth, or you read from Traction, the EOS, or from Work the System by Sam Carpenter, you read all these books about creating systems and process operations, but it's either never felt like the right time, or you've just been a little bit too overwhelmed, or it's not quite applicable. You need someone coming from the outside who can kind of put their foot down and say, no, like, this is how we can do it. This is how it's going to be done. So in our space, we provide the VA, but we provide them with the training and also with the oversight. We provide secondary resources that support that VA in creating those EOS and E-Myth style systems into your business, like your diagramming your leads funnel, diagramming your org chart, all those extra materials that make life a lot easier as a business owner comes pre-installed. So that's generally the value and the space that we play in, which is a little bit different. But there's a lot of other reasons you might want to outsource.
Yeah. When owners do contact you, where do you start to get immediately focus them and yourselves on? Is there low hanging fruit where a knowledge worker or a solopreneur or a thought leader or can really get some traction pretty quickly based on how it's worked with others?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's if I'm breaking down the constellation of the space that we play in, we have our VA company, we have our software company, which previously the software company has largely specialized in building products with companies, or building internal operational tools like ERPs or CRMs for internal companies as they go franchised route. So like, hey, I'm now going to create 10 new locations or franchise new locations, and I need to build tools to an IP internally to facilitate that. That's generally what our software company has done. But what I think is more relevant in this conversation is a new offering that we've done a lot in the past, but haven't systematized until recently, which is the process more related to exit planning, which is, let me go through my business, detail it out, and then figure out how I can remove constraints or remove risk in order to get acquired a higher amount. And so in that space, the process that we've done in the past and we would walk businesses through is we create a whiteboard diagram of every single process in their company in the spine of fulfillment. So all the way from prospecting to sales to onboarding fulfillment. And we try to detail out every single step. A lot of businesses might have that in broad strokes, but it has a lot of handoffs. It's kind of, it's bigger blocked. And for us, there is a level of insight and efficiency gained that is hard to overstate if you make the commitment to detail out every single step. And once that's done, we then create also a metrics dashboard that tracks the metrics associated with those steps, and therefore we try to figure out where the constraints are. Like, what are your conversion rates at different points of fulfillment? Where do things fall through the cracks, et cetera, et cetera. Create those KPIs, and then with those two assets in front of us, we can then make a prescription list of areas that you can either add in SOPs, which we have a lot of specialization, like I said, from the VA company, or you can add in automations and AI, which is our specialization from the software company. And so that prescription list is then geared towards what is possible in the next 90 days to achieve in order to remove the constraints from your business.
Right. So if you're going to 5 years out from sale and you went and talked to a business broker or an exit planner and they assess the business, I would too. I'd say, okay, I understand where you've been, but where's the business going? Because that's what a buyer's buying, and so you've got time. And so I love the idea there that there's I guess like a 90-day window, because it's very easy to say, to grow the value business, grow sales. How do you do that? Do you know whether you're converting at whatever rate now, let alone actually getting an increase in sales? So is that work to, does it identify the constraints you might have, but use the 90-day period to really push push through some quick wins, if you like, or to like at least to get some confidence that there's potential in the business. Let's just run it for 90 days and see how we go.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Eli Goldrat's work around the theory of constraints, um, which is you want to remove the biggest constraint inside of your business. If you remove constraints that are upstream from that, you don't make the problem better, you make it worse, because that just overwhelms even more the point of constraint. So
Yep.
adjusting your capacity, and this is obviously a lot more applicable to businesses that have some historical data, that have product market fit, that have some system, some process already installed, as opposed to being in a position where you're like a startup, still trying to figure out your way in the world, figure out how you fit in. But the theory of constraints for those businesses that are a little bit established, I think is the theory to apply. And so what we try to focus on in the 90 days is definitely the lowest hanging fruit, but the lowest hanging fruit that contributes to that theory of constraints, either freeing up the team and freeing up capacity so more of the team can attack the number one constraint, or adding in automations and tools that solve that constraint directly.
Are there industries where you see bigger opportunities than? Are there particular industries where you see these opportunities more real, more significant right now?
I think the theory of constraints applies to just about anything, but generally speaking, with our skill set, if we're supporting the prescription list and we're stepping into to supporting some of the constraint removal, it definitely applies more to remote businesses or internet-based businesses, where more of the touch points with the client or with the customer are in the digital space, because those are ones where you can control with software or with remote teams the inputs and outputs.
Yeah. Okay.
I do want to throw in one thing, though. I think that a lot of businesses that are maybe more in the local community, serves the local folks, and is not remote or is not digital, I think a lot of those businesses are ripe for very large improvements by digitizing parts of their client interaction. So even if the fulfillment is not digital, there's a lot of mom and pop shops out there, or businesses that are very well established, that are leaving money on the table by not digitizing and improving some of their customer experience points. So I do think that this applies to a wide breadth of companies, even not remote companies, but remote companies truly will have more prescription points that we can attack throughout the entire cycle.
But you don't throw everything at it. You go in. This. I like this 90-day plan. To prove out that we're getting some return on it. But as you say, with those other perhaps non-digital, more traditional, more established businesses, one of the things you see in almost any business sale information is that the business has got a lot of potential. The owners are tired, or they've been at it for a long time, and they're just running it the way they want to run it. But what you've just said there is the kind of work that really does give life to the statement that the business has potential, because if not it could be a large and complex sale that or sales that drive a particular business that it's not a daily consumption kind of purchase. It's something, maybe it's contracts or large capital equipment. But if you can show a buyer that we're engaging, we've got a list of leads, we're harvesting the leads because we've put in place a CRM system or something along those lines, your the risks look a little bit less, and the attractiveness looks a bit higher for a buyer, and it's well on from just saying the business has got lots of potential, and if you doubled sales, you'll make a lot of money. So yeah, that's the kind of thing which a lot of business owners, they get into, they run the business, and this is not a criticism. This is the reality. Is a lot of owners run businesses that work okay for them, and the first time they really get a sense that it could be a lot better, or it's not as easy to sell, or it's not as valuable as I thought, is because they don't know a lot. There's a lot of stuff they don't know, and they've kind of got a trusted group of employees, and everyone's got their capacity constraints and motivational and energy constraints. So that's what this bringing in somebody to kind of diagnose where your business, where I get involved, is what's it worth if you were to sell it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it starts to open up the question, well, what could it be worth, and is it sellable, and what's going to get in the way? So, which is again where we had a really terrific discussion about this, going through a process of mapping out some of your, putting in better systems and processes. We didn't get to talk about, well, some of the tech through Valhalla that you would implement into businesses. Are we talking about operating systems, processes? What does that in everyday implementation look like for businesses?
Yeah, so I can give one example of one thing we supported. So in our VA company, a lot of the value is obviously found in finding the best people for the job. On top of obviously giving the support and the training of how to implement BOS systems or EOS systems or EMIS systems, etc. But a huge part of it is getting the right people, and so recruitment is a big constraint inside of our VA company. And so we decided to do this process internally, going through every step of the recruitment process. And on the far side of it, it was we were able to triple the number of people that were being processed through. So
so you're living and breathing your own,
Yep.
systems and philosophy to improve.
And the magic is finding those constraints where the magic is finding any constraint that is the constraint in your business, and then by adding in AI and automation, or I should say, the way you figure out how to add in AI and automation is you have to know the inputs and outputs of that constraint. The first challenge is that many bottlenecks or constraints, the inputs and outputs are 80% clear, but they're not 100% clear. So, for instance, if you're talking with a business owner learning about their business before you advise them on exit planning, probably your input is not just that call. It's probably also you looked through their website. You probably also did some independent research, and synthesizing all that into a super clear input could be very challenging. But if you could do that, and you have historical data of having done that many times before, you could then add AI into that process to create an output of very, very high quality with just the stuff you have access to on the input side. So that can be very challenging. I don't think that's the lowest hanging fruit for consultants, for instance, especially exit planning consultants. I don't think AI is going to be taking that job anytime soon. But it illustrates this point. There's a lot of processes that you can automate the inputs, or rather crystallize and systematize the inputs. And once you do that, then adding in AI is very easy. And there's a whole realm, a huge world of automations that were not available even a year ago that now are possible to add in.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, and I could see quite overwhelming. It's come around so quickly, and there's still tens of thousands of businesses, I think possibly hundreds of thousands of businesses in Australia at least, that still don't have a website. And so that's an opportunity, but it's also you can see how some owners are AI on top of that, and they're doing what they want to do. They're largely, the business, if it's been around, it's producing enough revenue to keep them going. And sure, just about all of them can be improved, but it takes a lot of faith, trust for them to take a step. The closer they are to the end of their own business journey, to then invest in some improvement in systems and processes that might get them a higher value 5 years down the track, because you can see why it becomes it's easier to ignore. So we're both making the case here that there's the 90-day thing, for example, is just there are smart ways to go about looking at where the real where the first opportunities are, and give yourself a bit of confidence. So what
makes it real also. I mean, there's so many things, the grass is greener on the other side because it's lined with shit. So like creating something that's real, keeps folks from being bamboozled of like, well, we're 10x your business and just add AI and blockchain, everything will be solved. And it will be amazing. It's like, let's make it more practical.
Yeah, look, and you and I are both probably on. I've certainly heavily used LinkedIn, and it's just a cesspool of 10x this, and 2 days for this, and all you got to do is 1, 2, 3, and bada bing, bada boom, you've got this sellable business. It's so we're I guess we're a little bit more realistic, but also I was thinking before, when you go about starting a process of working with someone, how closely do you link the financials and the business strategy to the work that you might map out for a new client, a new business?
So with our current process, we have not yet attempted to support the CFO in the sense of like we're not trying to create a new financial dashboard or create a financial data room for them to sell. I think there are some overlap and some potential future opportunities for us to be giving support and value in that area, but that's not our current focus. But there's a heavily overlap in the sense of, if you need to be able to use the finances to both predict the bottom line profit increase you're going to get from removing these constraints, and you need to use the finances obviously to also say like how much are you willing to invest if you're going if you're going to, even if it's reducing costs, there's going to be some upfront costs associated with it as you're making the transition, and finance is super important for all those points. I don't think we yet provide a lot of direct support and value there.
But it sounds like it's if someone comes to you and says I want to sell in 5 years' time, and I want to sell at $10 million, and I think my advisor said it's worth $2 million. It would give you some really great structure to work towards if the owner was open to the investment that would be needed. But look, as you say, it doesn't need to be like that. But I think it's when you link business strategy with operations and finance, you then got, you can see, you understand why you're making the investment, and we are talking about investment here. What are some of the AI tools, apps, services that you think small business owners could take advantage of, and why? There's a lot going around.
Yeah,
a couple of the things.
I work with developers every single day, and they write their own code. But I famously, not famously, but I consistently, if you ask my team, consistently say I read code, but I don't write code. And because of that deficiency where I don't know how to write code, I'm a very big fan of no-code tools. And also, developers love no-code tools because it makes it much cheaper and much faster to build it out. And so I'm a huge fan of tools that people off the street that maybe you need to approach it from an analytical point of view. You might need to approach it from that abstract thinking and use that left side of your brain, but ultimately it's something that anybody can pick up without having to learn code. So I'm a huge fan of those tools.
So that could be,
yeah.
So that's it could be driven by I know I've got a problem in my business. I don't have on my website like a really detailed survey before I talk to the client on the phone. No, I mean it's not a great example, but no code is really, as I've played around with some of them, and if I wanted to put a valuation calculator on my website, I don't need to know how to code. What I do need to know is that other people have similar things, and that it's got to be easy to use, but there's a way to pull together something that I could whack up on the website, and it might create some interaction with some viewers on the website.
Yeah. It's bottom line is it's hard to suggest the best no code tools if you don't have a problem in mind. This is something also when you're teaching yourself development, the answer is have a goal in mind and then learn what you got to learn to do it, and that's going to cover the bases better than anything. With that being said, I don't want to. This is not a cop-out answer. I think there is a valuable answer. What I encourage business owners to do is decide how much you want to master this tool versus how much do you want your team to master this tool. I think there's a golden opportunity for a lot of business owners that are maybe thinking about selling, thinking about moving on, and they're deciding, how do I empower the team to run the company without me? And they're also wondering, how do I add in last mile upgrades like AI or automation? And well, the problem can be solved, two birds, one stone. This is an opportunity to be giving your team challenges, give people maybe in the next generation of leaders challenges and problems that they can then use an opportunity for leadership training for themselves. And so I'm a huge fan of, educating yourself, but not needing to be the guy for the job. Instead, use it as a fulcrum for culture changes.
Yeah.
So once you decide that, sorry, go.
I reckon there's a lot of owners that know, and they put them to the side, but they know they've got problems in their business. And what we're kind of saying here is there's probably a quicker, faster, cheaper solution enabled by AI now. Then don't think about what it might have cost 5 years ago, or that's what I think is the really so log all those problems as don't think of them as constraints or impossibles. Think of them now as, with AI, you or some of your team, if you can probably attack this quickly and cheaply to make your business better.
Yeah. And if you can decide how you want to attack the problem, let's say that you want your team members to do it. Let's say that maybe you have someone in your company who is kind of chomping at the bit for more responsibility, or else you want to train them to be looking for more responsibility. The process is to first define the acceptance criteria. I got this idea from the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. The idea is that you write down in very clear terms, what does success look like? And then that is a shared document. If you know 1 minute goal setting, it's a similar idea from there. You define that out, and then that's a shared document so that they can then decide the best way of executing on that. So detail out what are the inputs and outputs of this process that you want them to maybe be adding AI into, or the problem they want to be solving with AI. Then some tools that are probably the best tools that will be involved in the solution, depending on its particulars, I encourage business owners and their teams to check out ChatGPT Playground. So this is not the ChatGPT UI. This is, if you go to OpenAI, I think /playground, you'll come across a user interface that shows off how their API actually operates. And this is something that you can then, in no-code tools like Make.com, a lot of people know Zapier. You can do this with Zapier. You can build automations that connect directly to the API that then give you all the benefits of ChatGPT, but in your own ecosystem, maybe on your website, maybe on your forms, maybe in the emails you send out. you can build this stuff out with no code tools, and you can learn how to build them by checking out the playground. So that's the first study point. The second one I encourage people to do is Zapier, because that's how you can integrate tools together. And then, to be honest, when we build a lot of this stuff internally with no code tools, we use databases that are just Google spreadsheets. We just learn how to make a good Google spreadsheet function. If you don't know how to use Google spreadsheet functions, you can type into ChatGPT, I need a function that does X, Y, Z, and it'll give it to you. So we use just straight up spreadsheets, and also on Notion databases. We're a big fan of Notion. If we used Airtable, probably I would be saying the same about Airtable, that those are two good tools that can act as a good database if you don't want to use a spreadsheet, or spreadsheets just aren't a good solution for some reason. And that will give you a good stack. Zapier, Google Sheets, OpenAI Playground. That will give you a good stack to solve many problems inside of your business. And I can give some examples with that stack if you want, but I'll take a pause here.
Give us an example. I was just about to say, there's still a lot of, there's a lot of jargon. I think it could kind of, scare, a business owner. And what we're really saying is, no, there's a lot more capability to solve those problems that are running around the back of your head. So let's engage rather than be scared. So so an example might be.
So let's go with an example in sales. So actually, there's 5 different departments I recommend people look at when they're deciding how to add in AI. Let's start with like prospecting as number one. So in prospecting, one thing that you could do, let's say that there's some way that prospects indicate their interest. It could be that they chat you from a chat bot on your website. Maybe they send you an email. Maybe they engage with your scorecard. There's a lot, however they do it, that can be captured digitally. You can use Zapier to automatically detect when somebody does that, and then send the data you collect from that touch point. Maybe it's actually, I highly recommend the company Score app. This is something that we use, and Score app, they actually use AI as well to easily make a scorecard type of website. This is built by Daniel Priestley, where customers fill out a form, and then you get data from that form, and they've indicated their interest. There's a lot of use cases for something like that. So if you set up something like Score app, you can connect it to Zapier. And if I'm going too fast, or I'm connecting too many use too many new terminologies, just tell me to
that's
pause.
Fine.
But you can connect something with Zapier to automatically take that data when the user indicates interest, send their data to ChatGPT, prompt ChatGPT to then write a drafted letter indicating the next step. So, for instance, somebody goes to your website, they fill in their name and email, and says, "Hey, I want to know more about XYZ." And then they say a little bit about themselves. You can send all that details to ChatGPT for it to create a custom message to them, and then automatically just throw that into your Gmail inbox as a draft, where the first half of the draft is ChatGPT's suggested message to them, and the bottom half is what the customer actually said and the customer's actual details. And then you just have your sales team every day just open up all their drafts, and they can see pre-programmed messaging to those individuals. They can audit it. Maybe they don't want the AI to say stuff, some things, modify them, and then just mass send it off. And all of a sudden, you've automated a huge chunk of your follow-up sequence. Same thing with a follow-up. You can make a Zapier that will, after 2 weeks, make a custom follow-up depending on the user's behavior in your CRM.
And what this is the investment you should make if you're striving to build a business that's more valuable for. I'm going to keep throwing it into the exit planning basket and frame. And I know there'll be some owners that will think, well, I can kind of manage all that, and you probably can. But the point is, if you want to grow the value of your business, you're going to have to scale, grow sales, and you're going to have less time to do all this. And that's where that investment now over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months will pay off, because you can process more sales opportunities or more leads.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to get you higher revenue and higher value. And that might lead to another constraint, but that's okay. We've kind of at least opened the floodgates a little.
I'm a huge fan of the concept of the compounding effect of free time. So if you're at like 90% capacity, you can use that 10% to create systems and processes to get to 85% capacity. And then you have 15% time. And then you can use that 15% time to create the next system. And then you get at 20% extra capacity, so on and so forth. So you have a compounding effect of free time. And even though I'm a big fan of solving the constraint of your business rather than just solving any constraint, by solving other constraints, you can free up capacity to attack that one constraint. It's a really valuable concept.
So yeah, prospecting was number one. I think there were 5.
Yep. So the five points are, let me make sure I get them all right. It's prospecting, onboarding, customer service. So you can think of all 3 of those as AI tools to solve customer interactions at different parts of the funnel. Prospecting for prospects, onboarding once they become customers, and then customer service for the long term. So there's 3 departments right there. 2 other departments are staff training and also data entry and data analysis AI tools.
Yeah. So there's not. I don't think there'd be many businesses that couldn't benefit from focusing
at least
on
one of those.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the opportunity where we're trying to encourage owners to think about. And the first 3 around, they're really the top line. To grow the value of a business, most businesses, depending on how they're structured, you're not going to cut costs enough off the same revenue base to dramatically grow your valuation. Where you're going to see excitement and potentially a higher multiple, because you get a higher multiple when there's demonstrated growth and future growth potential. So it's through focusing on that front end, getting more customers to spend more money. On something you said on another podcast was about where you see AI is not going to, I don't know whose perspective you were taking, but it wasn't. It might take some jobs, but really the benefit of AI, don't get scared, was to embrace it and to view it more like to keep up. You've got to effectively embrace and use AI. Do you want to talk about that?
I am very bullish, very optimistic about AI's effect on the job market overall. I think there's a lot of people that think AI is going to be utopia, and a lot of people that think AI is going to be dystopia. Personally, I think it's going to be right down the middle. But of all the problems AI could potentially cause, I'm not personally worried about the job side of the equation, and that, of course, the biggest part is really encouraging people to think for themselves and kind of solve them for themselves. But there's a couple first principle concepts that I like to talk with people about, depending on their worries. So if it's individuals, let's say it's an individual that's worried about their job, they're scared about their job is going to be taken away. Well, the thing that I encourage them to keep in mind is that you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody using AI to become 10 times more effective, right? So, let's take artists. We're still wanting art from artists. In fact, the artists are making better art than non-artists when they use these AI tools. I don't know if you know things like Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, but the artists are making the best art because they know how to describe the art. And the artists are using these AI tools are producing 10 times or 100 times more art. So if you're scared about being replaced here, it's not you're being replaced by AI, you're being replaced by other humans. But the flip side of that I think a lot of people ignore is that the supply and demand curve is often constrained not by the supply side. Sorry, the other way around. It's often not constrained by the demand side. It's constrained by the supply side. So I'll give an example of this. when we rolled out the ATM machines, at least in America, a lot of people thought the bank tellers were going to become largely obsolete because the 80% of what the bank tellers were doing was automated by ATMs. So the obvious answer is we only need 1/5 the number, so we're good. And so a lot of bank tellers were panicking, but that didn't happen. Instead, what happened is actually the number of bank tellers went up. It didn't go down. And the reason is that the banks opened up way more branches because it was way cheaper to do it. So the constraint was not demand, the constraint was the supply. And I think a lot of places that people are worried about are going to go through a revolution where just the output increases. We want 10 times more developers. We want 10 times more salespeople and copywriters. We want 10 times more artists. There are exceptions. There are some areas, I think, like potentially in customer service, maybe we don't need 10 times more customer service representatives. And those people, you have to decide, you want to double down and become that person that's going to become 10 times more effective, or do you want to transition out and then learn these skills in another market that's being disrupted that will adjust. So that's the first thing I'd say to employees. To business owners, I have a different sort of set of principles that I use to think it through, but that's why I say for the employee side.
Talk about it from a business owner's perspective then.
So from a business owner's perspective, let me give a short story about medieval. So in medieval times, the definition of entrepreneur was someone who is playing arbitrage. So arbitrage is, you buy high one place and you sell low in another place. And arbitrage in medieval times was constrained by geography. So you were buying high in the east or buying low in the east,
buying
and you were
low
selling
and then
best.
selling high. Yeah,
exactly. But the modern day entrepreneurs are playing arbitrage with the future. So a lot of things right now are being disrupted, and it's being disrupted by entrepreneurs. They're seeing where the wave is going, and then they're pulling from that future into the present now, and they're playing arbitrage. They're getting a high margin by being the edge of that wave as it's rolling over. And so a lot of things that are expensive now are going to become a lot cheaper because the basic supply and demand curve still applies. Competition still lowers prices. So a lot of things right now, there's a lot of money being made, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, but things will become cheaper. But on the far end of that, we're going to be adding so much more value, and we're going to be providing so much more value on a cheaper level that it's going to in my opinion, mean that customers are going to get much better material and our margins are going to be essentially similar. But in the next 5 to 10 years is a moment of disruption where you can put your business in a much, much better place than your competition.
Yeah. So I really implore owners that we all carry around a bag full of weighted problems and loss, potential we can't fulfill, and that's just life in a small business. There are some exceptions where businesses are built to scale from straight away, or that there are just ultra talented people. There's a lot that are good at what they do, and some of these things can, whatever the day-to-day problems or constraints are, can look completely overwhelming. And so I think out of the reason I was so keen to talk with you is to go away and think about the time and cost to deal with that issue, to overcome that problem, to put away that constraint. It's probably never been a better time. If you are an owner that's got an exit in mind in 5 years or so, 3 years, then think about this as as an investment that will pay back, because your business will stay in parity with the other businesses that engage with AI. You could actually lose ground if you don't engage with AI. Your business could fall away perhaps even faster. So, yeah, it looks like maybe it's a point where it's really up or down.
Yeah, I think right now we're in a place similar to the 1980s when computers were being rolled out in offices, where all the accountants were getting access to spreadsheet software, where the writers were getting access to Word documents, and it took a lot of investment, and now, because so much of the physical infrastructure is built, this transition is happening faster and a lot cheaper, but it's no less monumental. Is there's a new wave of technology that's going to white collar workers, that there's a big disruption. And so we've been here before as a civilization. Some businesses, they adapt, they adapt the new tools and new technologies, and some businesses are slow to adapt, but they still succeed. And it's just a matter of do you want to take advantage of this? Because right now, it takes that more creative part of your brain. It's a different type of hard, but it pays a lot of dividends. So it's not harder to be a great business than it is to be a good business. They both take the same amount of effort. They just take the effort in different places of your business, and they take efforts of different places of your brain.
Yeah, and I think that can be triggered by just some of these suggestions. Go for a long walk. I just recently had an interview with Louise Brockman about using advisory boards.
Yeah.
So getting a fresh injection of perspective and talent.
Listening to this podcast.
Listening to this podcast. Garik, it's been a thoroughly enjoyable chat. I'm not done yet. I've never spoken to a futurist, right? So tell me about, I want to finish with you talking about what you get out of being a futurist, and what, and why it so intrigues you, but also relate that to your experience with your family, growing up in a business family, and building businesses. Like you kind of combine some sort of pretty powerful experience.
I've never been asked that question before. That's a great question. I guess I'll keep it brief because I think it might be a bit idiosyncratic to me. But
it's a very esoteric question, but I'm thrilled to be chatting to a futurist.
So I recently took the Myers-Briggs test, and I believe I was a INTJ, which is basically someone who's really obsessed with ideas. And I remember for as long as I can remember, I was really particular about the definitions of words. Like, what does wisdom mean? What does love mean? What does productivity mean? And I think it's generally comes from falling in love with concepts, and being really drawn to paradoxes, being really drawn to when you hear two smart people that feel like they're not in the same conversation. They're in their own bubbles. One futurist is talking about the end of the world, and one futurist is talking about like utopia. Like where
Keep
the
away
fuck
from
is
my
that
bubble.
going? Right? I'm really drawn to those seeming paradoxes, and they just nag at me until I can create a mental map that can incorporate perspectives and see where they come from. So I'm a huge fan of reading about the history of ideas, and where ideas and philosophies come from, and what the time they were made, and who are the authors, and how those authors influence other authors. And on the edge of that is business. Business is you're trying to build something that wasn't there before, that other people find valuable enough to exchange for fungible value. So that what money is, it's a contract to say civilization has said, hey, you did something worth it, and then you can that's worth some value, and you can spend that value in other things. So civilization has abstracted out all bargaining to a single fungible icon. So then, as a business, you're providing some sort of value in exchange for that. There's ways to hack that. Like there are black hat bad agents that can hack that system, but I think we've done remarkably well, at least when you compare to previous, other non-capitalist systems. So I think we're doing. We got to be grateful and respectful of what we've built so far, even as we try to improve the system. But fundamentally, as an entrepreneur, you're playing that game, and so for me, it's very much a practical, cutting edge way of expressing the ideas and concepts I've been obsessed for as long as I can remember in that esoteric sphere.
All right. But yeah, you do come back to that when you grow up in a family business, I can imagine that's quite impactful on the way you think about things as well. So that this idea that you can look forward and look back, I think, is so important. And I just yes, I really like to think that small business operators across the globe uh, can keep in check the entrepreneurialism kind of incorporates a lot of things, but there's a lot of overly powerful big businesses and governments and even NGOs that just completely dominate. And so, I want the small business to be a check on all of that, and so to have a look into the future. It's
I love
full
that.
of
Yeah.
opportunities. Yeah. Garik, so where do people, if they want to have a chat to you, where can they reach you?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say, Michael, thanks for having me. This was a ton of fun. Um, and if you're listening to this and you haven't gone back and re-listened to the episode and taken notes and then left a 5-star review, do that right now. But after you've done that, I would say if right now you're looking for a partner to increase your business valuation, then feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Obviously, also we provide VA services and product development services. So if either of those are a good fit, then hit us up as well. And I think the best way is just to reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can search Garrick Tate, connect with me, say Michael Kerr sent you, and we'll be
Yep.
sure to connect.
And it's GARIKTATE. So, but we'll put that in the information with the show. I love that you've been on the ground over there 10 years. Just at a personal level, what you enjoying life in where you live, and it's a long way from Northwest America.
Yep, it's tropical. I remember, as long as I remember, I wanted to be somewhere where the water was warm. Being in the Northwest, quite cold, that ocean. And yeah, it's a beautiful country. So feel very
Yeah,
very
excellent.
fortunate that things have worked out the way they have.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Gary, look, it's been really enjoyable. Thank you so much for being here and for fully engaging in a really interesting topic. So well done, and thanks. We'll stay in touch. Take care.
Thank you, Michael.